Good afternoon. Reese here from Chameleon. As you can see, my title's there, Head of Sales and Marketing. Know many of you already, but for those who are new and are joining us today for Chameleon Live, welcome along. I know we've got some people around the world, so if it's late in your evening, appreciate you coming. If it's your lunchtime, equally appreciate you from coming. Today we've got Ilana Kramer from KPMG New Zealand speaking with me. Very, very excited to speak to Ilana. She's been a regular guest of Chameleon Live since we kicked off 2 or 3 months ago, and is doing some really, really awesome stuff at KPMG with her team up in Auckland, I believe. Ilana is the Assistant Manager of Learning Development for KPMG New Zealand. She has been in learning for some time now. It's actually Ilana's birthday tomorrow. She probably didn't want me to tell you that. She did tell me how old she was turning, but I'm not going to tell everyone that because that wouldn't be appropriate. But feel free to pop a little happy birthday message in the chat box if you've got a moment and you feel the need. So welcome, Ilana. Great to have you with us.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. Looking forward to the session.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Now, I don't want to, I know this is not a job interview, Ilana, so I'm not going to pepper you with questions too much about your career to date. But I have had a cheeky look at your LinkedIn earlier and looked back at some of the roles you had. You obviously started your career over in South Africa. That's right?
I did, yes. So I've basically been in professional development most of my career. Started out long time ago. Let's not go into dates, but at Grant Thornton originally. Before that, I worked for a few lawyer firms and auditing firms. But for the Big Four, basically, I worked at Grant Thornton, then moved across to Ernst& Young. And then after that, quite a stint with them, and then came across to New Zealand, and now I'm with KPMG. So got good experience in that professional development space.
Yes, you've worked for a few of the big four, if you will, and I know there's even the five or six. And I saw tax pop up in your
Yes, I did
background
work
way
for the
back in the day.
International Tax Department. That is correct. Quite
Yeah, so
exciting.
that's
Tax is not that exciting, so it's yeah. We won't mention that today.
yeah. We were having a chat earlier actually around some tax things in the international space, so maybe I'll plug you afterwards for
Oh
that.
dear.
But obviously, the reason we've got you on today, Ilana, is to pick your brain and hopefully pick up some gold nuggets on your journey with UGC or user generated content. You started with Chameleon as a team February 22, is that right? Earlier this year, is that correct? Or
I think it was earlier. I think we've already started last year with it, actually.
there you go.
We were in talks with Josh for quite a while, actually. I think he pestered us a lot to get it, to be honest. And you know how difficult people are. But then when COVID hits, it's like, oh my gosh, we need to pivot. E-learning is the way to go. So it was a
Yep.
very good selling point for us at that point.
Yeah.
Having the benefits of what Chameleon can offer us, which was really good. So yeah,
Yeah.
we've been on Chameleon for a while. We've created some great content on there.
Yeah, and the interesting thing as well is, and I guess we'll talk about this shortly, is you came on with a few users, and then not so long after that, then we started to have a conversation around, hey, can we potentially put this in front of some more users across the organisation, and you grew the license, relatively quickly after you came on board. So, how
Yeah,
many
that was
people do
quite
you have using
exciting.
it now, Ilana? How many people are on
We've got about
using it?
10 users on at the moment. And I
Yep.
think in the next year, we'll probably add another 10, which is pretty good.
Okay.
So I think we'll
Okay.
move towards the enterprise license ultimately.
Yeah. So you started off with three and already at 10 and looking to
Yes.
grow to 20. And I guess that it's a big reason why I wanted to jump on this today is the strategy you've used to introduce this new way of creating content to the organisation is fabulous. So what did it look like before you went on this journey of user generated content and then I guess let's start there.
So before we started with Chameleon, we obviously had another creator, e-learning creator tool that we used. The
Mm-hmm.
problem with that is it's really hard for people to learn, and you need licenses, obviously, as you know, with all of these kind of things.
Yep.
But we won't mention which tool it was, which I think you can guess. But we only had two people in the whole KPMG office that could actually use the specific tool, and then one person resigned and left KPMG. So we ultimately were left with one. So every time you wanted anything created, only this person could do that specific task for us. And it was really hard because it's not an easy tool to use, and it is very time consuming, and it's back and forth, so it's always time constraint. That's the problem.
Mm.
And within L&D before COVID, we were only 3 people in the learning and
Right.
development space. We've now grown to 8, as you can imagine. But before that, it's very time constrained. And the problem is also, the business thinks that everything training should be sitting with L&D. And that is, we're trying to support the business, you're trying to support all these divisions, but it's just time is just not on our side. So with all the requests we got from the business in the end, and with COVID and having to pivot across to e-learnings, we actually went ahead with Chameleon in the end,
Right.
which was really, really great. And it's such a quick and easy process. It's such a quick and easy tool to use and to learn how to use. And I think once people started seeing, oh my gosh, look at what you can create, it's like, oh, we want a license. Oh, we want a license. So it's actually more the business was requesting us to get them licenses than we telling them to get licenses, which is a good selling point, actually.
Yeah. Wow. Well. Yeah. Look. Thank you so much for the for the feedback. Really appreciate that, and I think some of the team are on today, so they'll be really grateful to hear that as well. But I don't want to. I don't want to. I guess. Move away, obviously, from the great work you did to introduce this concept. Across the business. How did you? What was that tipping point that made you decide, to go out there and enable the team to produce content when they're not necessarily in the learning team?
Yeah. So for us, I think COVID was our biggest tipping point. Like I think it
Mm,
was with
mm,
most. A lot of our learning was done instructor-led training. So we were people in the office, either doing virtual trainings and things like that. But when it comes to technical training and that content material updates and things like that, it's very time consuming. And at the
mm,
end of the day, if you look at our learning model, it's a 70-20-10, where 70% is basically on the job training that you're learning peer to peer and colleague training. So
mm,
by giving people access to a tool like Chameleon where they can build their own content as an SME,
mm,
it makes it just so much better for people as a user engagement and the user
mm,
experience at the end. Because the content they're getting, I mean, they're building trust, they're building that confidence, they're getting to know the people and the content that they're doing, which is really great. And for us, we to get the ball rolling in the beginning, I mean, we had to kind of implement a bit of a strategy. And around
mm,
that strategy is like, what is the easiest and simplest way to integrate something that is not going to cost a fortune, firstly, and secondly, take up all your time just to learn how to use the platform? Because by the end of that, people are not going to be able to use it at all. We started with this little small champion group, shall I say? So we selected quite a few people within the business, and they championed Chameleon for us. They saw what the tool could do. They first trained up as users or administrators of
mm.
the system, and only then did we start building on that. And that's basically how we got the word out to be able to get everyone onto the platform. We also created quite clear guidelines of what is going to be hosted on Chameleon. It's not a
Okay.
tool where you're going to just dump your data on it. That's not what it's for.
Yep.
And we're not just using it for e-learnings, which is really exciting. So for us, as an example, when people start with KPMG, they do online training, all of this induction trainings, and it's things just
Mm,
introducing KPMG to them. And it's making it so interactive that they can use that kind of tool. When we go out for recruitment for the grads, as an example, we can
mm.
scan the URL on a barcode or whatever, and people can bring it up on their thing and say, oh, look, they've got IDE. Oh, look, they're doing all of these amazing things. What's the
Oh
benefits of working
wow.
for KPMG? So we're not just using it for e-learning and learning and development. We're actually using
Yep.
it for other things in the business, which is very exciting.
Yep.
We also set up a few branding templates, so people are not
Okay.
just blank canvas, don't know what's going on, don't even know where to start. At least have the logo on there, have a bit of a branding template for them to make it easier for them. And then obviously we look at that quality and accuracy of the materials that is being produced. So we're not just willy-nilly giving everyone access and then off you run. We
Yeah.
actually are
Yeah.
looking at the data, what is being created. We give a bit of feedback, maybe add a few more images. There's too much text on this specific field, because people think, oh, I can just use PowerPoint and put it into Chameleon. It's not quite what we're going for.
I hear you. I hear you, and I think that's a big uh, pushback's probably the right word, or
Yeah.
definitely a discussion I have often
Mm.
is the difference between learning and just and content creation, and the
Yes.
nuance between them, because I feel like that's a line that can be blurred sometimes, and I feel like not to put words in too many people's mouths, but sometimes that's a fear, for going down this track as well. So you raised a couple of really good points there. How did you go about choosing those champions in the initial stages and picking the
So
handful
we
of users?
Yeah, that's interesting. We've got actually representatives, like learning and development representatives for different
Okay.
divisions. So we've got like audit and tax and advisory and things like that. So for our very large divisions like audit and advisory, where you've got an excess of 400 people in a division, we kind of have learning representatives in those teams. So that was
Mm-hmm.
very helpful to have them on board and say, okay, what is it that you want to create? Because what they do is they come to us and say, can you create this for us? And with 3 people in a team, we just don't have the time. It's just that time
Yes.
constraint, as
Yep.
we're all time poor at the end of the day. So by giving them access to the tool and saying to them, well, you can do it yourself, amazing. They've really seen the benefit of that, and that was really, really great for us. And with that champions as well, we have, as an example, risk training, because you know how risk averse the auditing divisions and firms are. So
Yes.
we've actually got a lot of risk training that people are doing. So at the end of the year, they've got this risk roadshow. So they used to go around to all the divisions, all the offices, in person, doing the in-person risk training. Now what we do is we've created it on Chameleon. People can do it in their own time. They are not constrained. They have to do it, obviously, but they're not constrained. Oh, I have to be there on this day in the office, make sure that we're there. So we've
Yes.
given them that option to now do self-learning as well, which is really cool. Because people like learning, but they want to do it in their own time and when they can do it. They don't want to be
Yeah.
forced to do it at this time for the specific period, etc. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really helped a lot. So in the risk division, as an example, they're loving it. So they're creating all of their risk trainings on Chameleon and rolling it out, which is cool. And the fact that you can do assessments with your e-learnings is even
Yes.
better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. Potentially, and obviously in the risk and compliance space, it's a super important part of it. So, a couple of other questions that have come up out of that is, obviously you're senior within the organisation, so you hold a fair amount of clout to move on an initiative like this. But was there any pushback from any of the senior leadership group around going down this path, or was it just like, right?
I think that's the exciting thing is once they saw what the tool gave us, there wasn't
Yep.
any pushback. So the moment you can show them what's the benefit and what's in it for me, and by
Mm,
showing them that you don't have to wait 6 months for us to get to your project, that we can actually do your e-learning modules for you, the fact that they've got the ownership, and we're empowering their people to actually take on that responsibility. And you're giving them a great opportunity here, where they can
mm.
come with their SMEs. So they've got all their subject matter experts, they get all the content together and they put it together themselves in the way that they can envision it and the way that they want to bring their message across. So we
Mm,
actually had no kickback from senior leadership or anything like that, because I think once you can communicate what is that benefit and how is it going to
mm,
save us, it's cost saving, it's time saving, it's easy to use, the user interface is amazing, and I mean for the end user it's a great experience because they can also click through and do the little assessments and the
yes.
questions and all those kind of things. So for an end user perspective, I mean, if you're looking at your employee value proposition, you want people to be wanting to do the training and getting excited
Mm.
about it. So no, we didn't actually have any kickback on that, which is great.
Oh, well played. Jeez. Okay. I was expecting a little bit. Yeah.
Oh,
I
sorry.
guess that was it. Yeah. 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 No. I thought sometimes when you go down this path, it's it can be a bit of a change and a shift in the way you guys are doing stuff. So well played. So on that front, then, has been a bit of a shift for the way you've been doing learning at KPMG, particularly obviously here in New Zealand. Uh, how do you think it's impacted the brand of you and your team? Like, and this is probably not a. I don't want you to be too humble with the answer to this, Ilana, because I feel like what you've done here is actually, I think sometimes learning gets a bad rap, in organisations, but it feels like you're actually delivering something that folks are having a lot of fun with.
I think so. If I look at by handing off, I say handing off, by giving other people the opportunity to create their own e-learning and getting those SMEs involved to become the content creators, it's
Mm,
actually freed L&D up to do bigger strategic projects.
Sure.
We've got a big focus on leadership. We've got a big focus on IDE, the inclusion, diversity, equity space. We've got now a focus on accessibility, So there's so many other ventures where learning and development
Mm.
is getting involved with that if we get bogged down in just doing content creation all the time, we are just, but they're just on the sideline. Oh, but they're just there to back us up type of idea. And I think
Yeah.
once they start seeing that L&D is much more strategically involved with the strategy of the business as well as with HR, there's definitely a lot of benefit in that. So from that perspective, we've seen some great results. The fact that it's
Mm.
more cost effective, things are actually getting done quicker because they don't
Mm.
have to sit and wait for us, like I mentioned, with the time constraints that we've been
Mm.
having. And then also, obviously, the ability to also host Chameleon on different platforms. So we don't just have to put it on the LMS, which we do have an option to do because you can export it as SCORM and upload it to your LMS system. But we can also host it on our digital learning experience platform, Degree, that we've just integrated.
Oh,
If
sure.
you just have the
Mm.
URL, you can host it almost anywhere, which is really great. And I think that's a great benefit for us that everyone can actually access it regardless of where it's being hosted.
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah. And it comes back to that point you made earlier, right, around letting people learn when they want to learn and where they want to
Yeah,
learn, and giving them
exactly.
that.
And
I
I think
actually
the
saw it.
SMEs, yeah.
No, you go, Alana. Sorry.
Now, I'm thinking that subject matter experts, the fact that they actually have something that they can use to develop this kind of things and host it in a central area is also very beneficial for them. If you look at like
Mm.
business development, all the content that they create and the stuff that they're rolling out, and like sustainability as an example, because that's a very big focus for our business as well this year and going forward. So that sustainability access, that sustainable value, climate change, all of those kind of things. And there's some really quick wins that you can do with that. So it's just like a climate change 101, and do a bit of an e-learning module,
Yes.
and people love
Yes.
it. They love it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can see the passion in your eyes. It's awesome. It's because I'm not sure if you saw this earlier. This is you probably didn't because it was not long before we jumped on this call actually. But on LinkedIn, we put a little post up earlier to say how excited we were to talk to you and Steve Corney, who was on a call with us a couple of weeks back. He put this comment on it. I think it's really relevant to the point you're making here. And he said the more SMEs that we can get on the tools and build or start building, then us learning designers or L&D teams can finally be used to meaningfully enhance learning instead of having to become the SME or drag them along from the beginning. So I thought that was really quite
That's true.
powerful. What he said there is making a more meaningful contribution. Not that it's not meaningful, to date, but to
Yeah.
make it more meaningful and to work on those strategic pieces. And
There's
because
definitely been a
yeah,
bit of a shift in the L&D space as well. It's not so much training
mm,
and learning anymore. It's now about career
yes,
development. It's
yep,
moving to more a strategic approach. So
mm,
it's interesting how that shift is happening slowly but surely, and also a digital approach. It's moving a lot more towards digital than having people sitting in a room, which
mm,
is quite interesting. So yeah, if you look at LinkedIn Learning and all of those kind of things, people want to learn when they want to learn. They don't want to be
yeah.
told when to learn.
Yes, yes. Like YouTube's a great example, right? Like this, yeah. I
Yeah.
can go down some great rabbit holes on YouTube. Usually, sport comes into it, but anyhow. So you touched on results. Do you have any core metrics around the results you achieved
No, we
since you?
haven't really managed that, to be honest. There's obviously a few mandatory trainings that we have created on it that we've rolled out and assigned to people to do, and they quite enjoy the interface of it.
Mhm.
It's easy to use, it's easy to manage, those kind of things. But we haven't really looked at that in that depth at metrics and things like that.
Yeah, no. It was a question without notice. So
No, that's fine.
I thought I'd ask you. Hey, I've been absolutely peppering you with questions, but folks, everyone who is on the call, feel free to drop a question into the Q&A, and we can certainly bring that to the fore. I see Tammy. Thank you. You've already plugged a question into the chat there as well. We might do this now because it's sort of we've been touching on it just a moment ago, Ilana. So, did you offer any specific learning design training for SMEs and the content creators? How did you
We did
upskill them in that
actually.
space?
So, learning to use the interface is one thing, but learning how to do
Mm,
design is a completely different thing. And no offense to people in audit and tax, but creativity is not their strong suit. And they love putting a lot of words in a lot of pages. And sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, what is your message and what do you want to convey? So that's where we step in from an L&D perspective. We used a lot of your free resources on your website. So there's the blogs and the resources that you have on your website. What looks good, what's best practice, design, using animations, using that Lord icons and things. Oh my gosh, I love Josh for that. We use it all the time. So
He's a big
using
fan of.
those kind of things to make make your e-learning and your modules actually look good. So we actually did a bit of a session with them, and we're planning on bringing Josh in to do another session with the new users that we've brought on, our new administrators. So we actually have a specific session with them where we tell them, when you are designing this, think of it from a user perspective. If you are the end user doing the training, what is it that you want to see? Do you want to see pages and pages and pages of stuff that you need to read, or do you just want the key messages out of it? So we did quite a bit of training in that aspect because they are the subject matter experts. They know exactly what they're talking about. But when they need to convey it, how are we going to do it in an easy way that is digestible by the end user? So yes, we actually did a lot of training with them on that.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Ilana, and great question, Tammy. Really relevant, something I hadn't thought of asking myself. So what I wanted to do is pull up just a couple of examples of some of the screen shares of the modules you have been creating.
Just noting,
Because I
we're no
guess,
professionals.
well, yeah, I know we had that dialogue back and forth on email, Ilana, and I
Oh
think
dear.
you don't do yourself justice here. You
You think?
Yeah, I think there's some amazing stuff you folks have been created, and
Thank you.
if I go through this, a list of some of the modules that you have been creating, an accessibility module, so that's about your accessibility network to learn more about disability in the workplace at KPMG. I think what a wonderful topic to cover off. GLMS training, that's around
So
your
GLMS
LMS.
is our global learning management system, and that's
Yep.
basically some training for administrators around there.
Excellent. Te Reo, a Māori 101. So that's to introduce some basic Te Reo. Was that in conjunction with the Māori Language Week as well,
It
Alana, or was
was,
it just...
yes, it
Yep.
was. That is correct, yes.
Excellent.
We
Law
developed it
View.
before you rolled your one out.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should take a closer look at that soon. The Law View introduction. That sounds like an exciting topic. The
Not
legal
really.
software, is it? Yeah, cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, you've obviously got the unconscious bias module that you picked up from Inspire Group, but you've
Yes.
gone and actually customized that, haven't you? That's the
Yeah,
interesting.
we did. So
Yeah.
Inspire Group, they created this amazing module on unconscious bias, which we think was phenomenal, and it's exactly what we needed, and it's so relevant with the IDE space at the moment. So we've
Mm,
actually purchased it and customized it and just put our own branding on it. We didn't actually change much of the content. We just changed the branding and the coloring and the pictures and the images and things like that. And we're actually
mm,
rolling it out at the beginning of this year. So it'll be part of our mandatory training being rolled out for when you actually start with a firm. So it's rainbow tick training, unconscious bias training, all of that will be done together
mm.
as mandatory training for new starters going forward.
Yeah. And the last one I want to pick up
Mm,
really quickly is this coaching for buddies module, because I really
yes.
I feel quite passionate about this as a subject. So can you tell us a little bit more about this one?
So when a new starter starts with a firm, they get allocated what's called a buddy. So this
Yep.
buddy is the person that can answer all their questions for them. They take them through where's the bathroom, where do I pick up my laptop, how do I change my password, how do I print at a printer, where do I go for lunch, where can I get coffee, all of those kind of things. So the basic things that we can probably put it in a document, but it's much better if you've got a bit of a person that you can connect with. And it's
Yep.
generally someone within their teams. And what we
Mm,
do with the buddies is we just kind of give them a bit of a background. It's like, why are you important to this person? How are you going to build rapport with them? What is it that you actually need to take them with? We even give them a bit of a buddy checklist, just to give them an idea of what it is they need to do with their new people. And then checking in with them every week, every second week, every month, etc. after they've started. So for the first
mm.
90 days of your career at KPMG, we allocate you this buddy. And a lot of those buddies actually tend on they actually become like your friends going forward. And so, yeah, it's really, really nice. But it's just supporting you with your journey when you start with KPMG.
And it's so important, isn't it? I can't. Well, I don't want to. I'm not a learning designer by any stretch, and a lot of the team, if they're on the call now, they'll be smiling when I say that. But from my experience, it's so important, that first touch point with someone, and it usually is from learning, right? That's the
Yes.
first touch point that someone generally has when they're starting a new role. Is a module like this one you're talking about here, that sets the tone for
Yes.
their first impressions of the company, and what those first 90 days are going to be like. So yeah, it's such an important topic to to
Support
nail.
them.
And
Mm.
yeah, yeah. Uh, so, but just a reminder, folks, chuck some questions in the Q&A. I'm keen to for you to pepper Ilana as well. It's her birthday tomorrow, so let's make the most of today. Um, and then, talk to me about a little bit more about quality control. So I often use this sort of analogy about learning being the head chef on the pass, and they're taking dishes from their team or their sous chefs, and no, there's a little bit of gravy on the side of the plate there. Let's push it back, and before we send it out to customers. How did you though? How did you manage the quality control piece at your end?
So that is something that we're continuously doing. Like I say, when we give it to our SMEs and they develop all these things, it tends to be
Mm,
very wordy and very heavy with content. So from our perspective from L&D, we kind of have a squiz at everything before it goes out. We look at it. What is the content? What is the message you want to convey? Is there enough images in it? Is there too many images in it? Is there a different way that we can do it? Is there maybe flip cards instead of just reading a document? So having a
mm.
look at the different topics, the little portals. Can we create a learning portal where they come back and see where they're working through? So things like that. So it's almost like giving them an idea of how can we make it better and not criticizing them. So, the point is not to say, oh, you did a terrible job at this. I mean, it's a pathetic type of idea. We just
Yes.
we just want to enhance it to make it a little bit better for the end user at the end of the day. So we look
Yeah.
at the interactions that we can use. We look at the images, those kind of things. And then obviously before it gets uploaded into the LMS, there is a final review process it goes through. We do
Mhm.
testing. And then what we do is we actually assign it to the creator and say, now pretend you're an end user and see if you like
Ah,
it
I
you know
love it.
so we actually assign it and then say, okay, can you test this for us? Does it work? When you come back in it, does it follow on? Does the quiz work? If you pass it, does it complete it? Things like that. So we actually make them the end user and say, you test it as an end user and you tell us if you like it.
What a
And it's actually
wonderful
quite
idea.
interesting what they then come back with and say, oh yes, yeah, no, I didn't like that. But you're always your own worst critic. So sometimes it's a good idea
Absolutely.
to get them just a different perspective.
Oh, that's a great. Yeah, I really love that, because I just feel like myself, for example, when you're building a course in the editor and you preview it out, you take it for granted, and yeah, sometimes you don't go from end to
Yes.
end, with that learner hat on. So I really love that, and I'm just going to use this as an opportune time. Now you've raised it, so we are very close to rolling out our review tool in that space. So it's going to allow for that feedback loop from yourself, for example, through to your SMEs,
Mm.
to be able to write comments on, send those back to the creators, and then for them to see that in real time as
Yeah.
well. So watch this space on that front. So let's slightly more personal question, Alana. What have you learned on this journey? Like, what have you picked up in terms of your career development and so on and
Well,
so
one
forth?
thing I can say that I did learn is L&D is not just learning and
Hmm.
training,
Hmm.
and L&D doesn't have to do everything. I think if you can get your SMEs involved in the journey, and if you can get people involved in the journey that want to be on that journey with you, I think it's a
Mm,
great idea. I mean, we've got this big end goal in our minds, and it's like, oh, that's the strategy, and that's where we want to be. It's like, how are we going to achieve it? But we don't have to do everything for everybody. And it's good
mm,
to empower people to have the opportunity to also learn. It's good to
mm,
show them, look at these amazing tools that's out there. I mean, part of our digital strategy is also we want people to have those collaboration tools available to them. We want people to know, there's so many digital tools. You don't, it's just putting them onto that journey with you, basically. But it also gives the SMEs a chance to build trust. It gives
mm,
them the opportunity to put forward what is it that I can offer to the people? What is it that I can learn? And let other people learn from me, because that's the whole point. I mean, that's why we've got colleagues and that peer to peer. And it's lovely that you put it in a document and you send it off to your clients, but are you sharing that knowledge also with your peers and your colleagues? So we're giving
yeah,
them that opportunity to build kind of a bit of a knowledge base and foster a
mhm,
bit of that social element in the working environment. but we're also trying to empower our people to create on-demand solutions, and that's in time, because
Yeah.
that's very important. And I think that's something we sometimes forget. It's like, oh, I want to create this learning, but it's going to be done in 3 months' time, and by then it's not relevant anymore. So it needs
Mm.
to be relevant, it needs to be on demand. It's stuff that people can have a look at now to help them in their positions going forward in their careers. I think
Mm.
that's probably one of the biggest learnings that I've got out of Chameleon.
Excellent. I think thanks for sharing that. And I think off the back of that, I can't actually see if this is your good friend Josh asking this question,
It looks like
or
it.
another Josh that's joined the call today. But um, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to someone just starting out or considering this? Because I do know that I speak to people often about, oh, we want to dip our toe in the ocean on this one, but we're a little bit nervy. So what advice would you give them?
Well, advice I think is you do give like a free trial. Maybe it's a good idea to go on the free trial and see if you can develop something. So think of a concept that you want to introduce. Think of something that you think that is quite relevant to the business right now. Go and develop it and see how it works. I mean, it's the only
Mm.
way to learn something is to try it out. So that's why I'm
Mm.
thinking the free trial that you guys give is a great idea. And learn as much as you possibly can from that. But also, to empower people to have their own space to create is really great, and learning through technology is really good. And the thing is, it's easy to access, it's easy to learn, it's easy to use. If you can promote that to people, it's absolutely worth it. If I think once you can see the benefit of what the tool can give you in your job, by saving you time, giving other people opportunity, like I mentioned earlier, the SMEs to promote themselves, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I can say.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, it's an interesting point because I feel like tooling aside, like obviously I wear Team Chameleon's hat all day every day, but it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because I feel like there's not too much risk here. Like as long
No.
as you've got some quality controls in place, right? And one of our key values here is at Chameleon, and when we roll out, like we're going to roll out the review tool soon, and we know it's not perfect. We know that, but we're not letting perfect get in the way of better,
Yes.
and I feel like
But that's
that's
the
a
thing. You just need to start. And once you get started and start seeing how much you can do with the tool and what you can do with the tool and how you can integrate it, I think the sky's the limit, to be honest.
yeah. I think thanks so much.
Cool.
And we're going to wrap up shortly because I know you've probably got some birthday festivities to jump into. Are you a Melbourne Cup follower,
Not
Ilana, or
really,
not?
no.
No? No? So we're not sharing any tips today for that. Um, but in terms of the big rocks for you at KPMG, so obviously this is something that's you're kicking some big goals with. What are the next sort of big things as an organisation you think you're going to need to tackle going forward
Well, there's
in
quite a
terms
lot of
of
stuff happening in our digital space at the moment. We've just
yeah.
implemented a digital experience platform called
Hmm.
Degreed. And within Degreed, you can build career learning pathways as well as normal
Hmm.
learning pathways and plans. And we've actually been helping the SMEs at the moment building those pathways, allocating resources to that. And it's very time consuming, as you can imagine, because there's a lot of stuff to
Mm.
consider. There's a lot of platforms where content is being hosted at the moment. So it's trying to bring that all into one area. So
Yep.
we see Degreed almost as the Google of learning. So once you go in there, you can find everything that you're looking for, which is amazing. And we've got
Yep.
so many platforms because we've got LinkedIn Learning and you've got the GLMS and you've got, I don't know, Google. Let's not even go there. So what do people do if they don't know how to do their job? They go and Google. So we're going to give them Degreed and say, go Google in there, and then you'll actually find the relevant content that you're looking for. So that's a big space for us at the moment. Coaching, career coaching, sponsorship. There's a lot of stuff happening in the IDE space. Leadership is always, it's so relevant, and it's in every business. We want more
Mm.
leadership training. We want more leadership training. It
Yeah,
just
yeah,
cannot
I
stop
know.
us. So there's a big focus of these kind of things happening. But we do want to support our people with their career development going forward. And we think that the learning pathways that we've created and the content that we share in there is really relevant. And Chameleon plays a big part in that because a lot of the content we are being developed at the moment, is going to be portrayed in Chameleon and being
Mm.
used as the modules that will be rolled out for that. So A lot of
Great.
stuff happening. Very
Yeah,
busy.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're a busy person. I've got one last question, and then
Yes.
if there's no more from the audience, that is absolutely cool because I think
I
we've
think there's a
probably
few that came through. I'll have a look now.
we've got an absolute gold nugget of Oh, yep, cool. I've missed a few in this chat. Sorry, I was looking at the Q and A. But anyhow, one question I want to ask really quickly, and then I'm sure we'll have enough time to ask these other questions. Is talking about the learner. How do KPMG? You guys, you've got disciplines right across. All of the professional paths. How do you free up time for people to learn?
It's quite exciting. It's a very good question, and I'm sure it's a very relevant question because a lot of people are experiencing this at the moment.
Mm,
For us, one of the pillars in our HR strategy is learn for a lifetime. That is kind of a very big pillar for us. Now, as you know, in an auditing firm, you have people that have to have professional development hours, learning that they
mm,
do. So when they belong to CANS or law profs or CPA or any of those membership fees, there is stuff that they have to do. And we have
sure.
to make that available to them. A lot of it is mandatory learning, which is fair enough. But from that perspective, we have certain divisions that are coming on board. And what they're doing is they say, we're going to give you a 4.5 hour or, 4.5 days learning week. And then for half a day, basically, we're going to give you the opportunity to go off and learn. Whether it's a new tool, whether it is Chameleon, let's hope,
Hmm.
whether it is, I don't know, anything you want to do, except for sitting in the pub and having a beer, but anything you want to do in that space to learn something new, we are going to give you the opportunity and the time. Now, given that we sell time, that's kind of what we do, is we sell time.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah.
hard to make that balance and get that right. But we are trying to give people the opportunity to do that learning. But I think also about making it available on so many platforms, making it available on mobile, so that they can access their learning. So if they're coming in on the bus in the morning and they've got 15 minutes on the bus, they can quickly look at a few videos. Or, we're trying
Mm,
to make it accessible on many platforms so that it's not they just have to sit in front of a computer and that's when they do their learning.
mm,
And this is
mm,
now formal learning. But if you look at we have a lot of training sessions in our divisions as well, technical training sessions where people have the opportunity to learn from each other. They have the
mm.
opportunity to share that knowledge base that they've got. I mean, we've got really smart people in KPMG. Me probably bar
Yeah,
it, but there's a
yeah,
lot of people there and they know a lot of stuff. But it's how are
yeah.
we sharing that content and how are we developing our people going forward like that? And
Mm,
it's
mm.
it's a tough balance because people are time poor, and with the labor market at the moment, I mean, we are doing six people's job because we can't find six people to do the job. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't have a hard and fast answer for that, and not every answer is going to be correct, but we are trying our best by trying to give people the opportunity to learn and giving them the time to do that as well.
Yeah. No. I think it's a great answer. I think it's a great answer, in kudos, because I think it's one of the biggest challenges is let's do more learning, but
Yeah.
when can we do it? Can do you prioritize it as an organization? And it certainly sounds like you do there. So I've got a few really great questions in here. So some of them we've touched on. So Tammy was keen to hear more about the QA process before we went live. I feel like we've answered that during our discussion. Hopefully, Tammy. If not, flick me an email afterwards, and we can discuss more. Um, Ruben's got one here, so I'm just going to read this aloud. If others develop content within the team, do you moderate, refine the quiz components to ensure that the learning occurs so that it can be recalled later at the time it is required? How would you ensure the measurement tool is analysing what it is supposed to? For example, ensuring the questions are valid.
See, I think that responsibility sits with the SMEs because they're the ones who develop the content, so they will give us the questions and the answers.
Mm,
That's not something that learning and development really get involved with. But in Comedian, when you build the quiz in, you can export that quiz and all the, if they have to have 80% pass mark as an example, when you
mm,
export it in your SCORM file, it actually uploads into your LMS system and you can have that quiz there. We
yes,
don't generally develop quizzes separately from the e-learning. We actually develop it inside the e-learning so that when we export the SCORM file, everything's coming as a package
everything's
together,
wrapped
which
up.
is really great for us. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a mix of formative and summative, so throughout
Yeah.
and at the, yep, yeah,
Some of
great.
it is, yes, yeah. Like our accessibility one, we actually have questions throughout. So once they've completed a topic, they need to answer a question, etc. But they also have a quiz at the end. So you can also
Mhm.
build a separate quiz and, except for the ones inside. Yeah. Good
Great,
question.
great.
Hmm.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Ruben. Uh, Nisha, how does the BAU review process of your modules work with your SMEs? So,
So,
um,
you know,
yeah,
we've got a queue. It's like a checklist that we actually have developed for them.
okay,
There's certain things that they have to tick within this checklist, and that's part of what we also use for our review process. So BAU, yeah, it is probably BAU because they will come to us and say, "Oh, we want to develop this," and then we'll give them a license and train them on the tool, and then we'll give them that checklist that they will have to go through. I mean, the
mm,
checklist includes things like make sure that this works, make sure you include images, make sure that there's not too much content on a page. It's sometimes very simple. It's not, a bit self explanatory in a way, but it is stuff that people don't necessarily think of. We also say don't put in, so many things that people have to go through, because all they do is click, 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 click eventually. Lock down certain pages. If you're doing assessments, make sure that you're putting the 80% mark or whatever the pass mark is. Make sure you've got an
mm,
introduction page for certain things, because sometimes so they just go from one end to the other and you're like, well, I don't know what's going on here. So it's
yeah,
just structuring things, because people, like, they've got a lot of data they're trying to put into a page or into something, but they don't actually structure it. So it's
yes,
those kind of things that we do. We actually have a bit of a checklist that we go through with them in the training, just to give them an
nice.
idea.
Nice. Well, so much. You're sharing some gold nuggets here, Ilana. Um, another one from Tammy. I can imagine there would be a lot of enthusiasm for content creation as a quick win. How do you go about having the SMEs consider the big picture of 70-20-10, or do you just let them go for it and go crazy? Go to the
Sometimes we just
crazy
let
for
them
me.
go for it because they're so
Yeah.
enthusiastic and they really just want to show you what they've got.
Yep.
I don't think we're too strict with them on the 70-20-10, I have to be honest. A lot of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that we have been creating has been more content share within the divisions. It's not
Okay.
necessarily for the whole firm. The stuff that we create from L&D obviously is firm wide, so we need to take everyone into account for that. But yeah, most of the time we just let them go for it. And then when we get to the review process, we kind of like start
Sharpen
trimming
it
it
up
down.
slightly and start. Yeah. Start to. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
Oh dear.
Um, excellent. And Ruben has just got a comment. Have you reviewed the learning science in relation to the effectiveness of training of biases? I haven't myself,
Nice
Ruben.
one. Yeah, I'll have a look at
Yeah,
that.
but there's an interesting article there if anyone wants to click on that from Ruben. Thanks for sharing that. I'm just going to double check. No worries, Tammy. Thanks for the great questions. If there was a chocolate fish for the questions today, you'd definitely be
You
getting
get
one,
it.
Tammy, and Ruben, you'd get one too, mate. Don't worry. So if no one has any other questions, I think we might call it a wrap there.
Cool.
Do you have anything else you wanted to share, Alana? You've been so good with your time, and geez, I've learned a lot in the last 45 minutes. You've jam packed some knowledge in there for me. But anything else you wanted to
Good.
share?
Um, if I can say, when you are rolling out Chameleon in your firm and trying to get everyone on board, make sure you've got a bit of a communication plan in place.
Yep,
When you are communicating it to people, you don't need to tell everybody everything about everything. When you're
yep,
talking to your SMEs, kind of give them a concept of what it is that they need to know.
hmm
Don't overwhelm with too much data, because then you're going to lose them. When you're talking to whoever needs to sign it off, say, oh, this is the amazing benefits, look at what we're going to do, and then just get that tick mark done. So I would say put a little bit of a communication plan together, see what message you need to convey to whom. And
hmm
then once you can get your people on board, the quicker you can actually get some e-learnings out, you're going to get some quick wins, I think. And the more people see what you are developing on the platform, the more people will want to get involved.
And
Because
that
we've
gathers
noticed
that
that with some of
momentum.
ours. So our accessibility training was one of the first ones to launch, and people were like, "Oh wow, did you create this?" I'm like, "Well, I had help." But and then people, "Oh, can we do something?" So people
Yeah.
actually get excited when they see what you can do. So I think the more you start using it, the more you start rolling it out, the more you're going to start having people coming to you in the business asking
Mm.
for a license.
Wow. Well, I think that's a brilliant way to finish on that note, and I yeah couldn't agree more. So thank you so much, Alana. I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks now, and been able to jump on and have a really awesome conversation with some great questions as well. So thank you for everyone who's popped in some questions. But yeah, Alana, look forward to our next discussion. It probably won't be on a session like this, but if it is, happy days.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us. Keep an eye on your email, everyone. We will be sharing details of the next one, which is going to be 2 weeks from now. But otherwise, have a fabulous afternoon, evening, whatever time of the day it is for you, wherever you're joining. And we'll chat to you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
We live in a world where e-learning design tools discourage change and limit your ideas. So courses end up looking the same, where you need specialists to create anything because they're so complicated, and things are built with legacy technology that might not always work. Welcome to Chameleon Creator, the change engine, a fully responsive authoring tool built with a design-first attitude for the next generation of the web. Gone are the days where you need to worry about coding or ensure it's compatible for all devices. We do all that behind the scenes for you. It doesn't matter what color or shape your brand is, it will look like you. Whether you're new to creating or a seasoned veteran, Chameleon Creator gives everyone the ability to design beautiful, engaging, and accessible digital learning content quickly and easily. Rapidly create content from scratch. Build amazing interactions. Design for your brand. Test with your end users, and deliver a beautiful learning experience just like that. Use Chameleon Creator on any learning management system or simply host and report on our platform. Our easy-to-use, customizable tools will turn you into a change maker and free you up to create positive change in the world. No matter what you're sharing, all over the world, whenever beautiful change happens, Chameleon is there.